Good evening, guys. Welcome to today's Facebook Live training. Today I want to talk a bit about the fantasy, specifically the codependent fantasy that we tend to all live with if we're dealing with codependency. So if you relate to being a people pleaser, you relate to the word codependent, you lose yourself in relationships, you find yourself trying to please and fix and control other people, you're dealing with codependency and you've got a fantasy in the way. Now, the fantasy is a very important component to codependency. It's part of what keeps us in the codependent behaviors. The fantasy is actually a result of what I call discard trauma and love neglect. So fundamentally, codependency comes from the experience that we do not feel loved and we do not feel safe that we will be known, kept, or loved by the person or people we're bonded to. That could be our parents, that could be our social circle, that could be our siblings, that could be our spouse or a significant other, our partner, whatever it might be. We have an attachment to them because we have not been able to really mature into our own individuality in a safe and healthy way. Okay? So codependency is really a coping mechanism for dealing with love neglect and what's called discard trauma. Now, discard trauma, for those of you who are new to me, to my work, discard trauma is actually the threat of being abandoned, to being like a piece of trash, discarded. You're no longer useful to the person. For someone who struggles with connection, who has been used to supply the other person with what they wanted, been used as a source of supply is a better way to put that, that's a very scary prospect. I mean, generally, we're scared of rejection as it is. We're terrified of abandonment because that means physical, social, emotional isolation. That could mean death. So that's really what we're wrestling with here. So codependency is how we survive that. It was the survival strategy we implemented to get through it, to get around it, and to actually learn how to thrive. Try to get some of those core needs met, like being loved, having attention, being liked, being included, being valued. Okay? So part of codependency relies on this idea that I call the codependent fantasy. And it has 5 specific elements. Okay? This is where we're going to get some fun. I've got a little infographic. It's going to come up here for me. Let's see. Hey, and there's 4 of you. Hi, guys. Comment below. Let me know you're here. You like the video, whatnot, stuff like that. So, are you living the codependent fantasy? There's 5 specific things that are going to tell you you're living in this codependent fantasy. And number 1 is, are you actively excusing their bad behavior? Are you enabling it? So are you going like, hey, that was just a bad day. That's why they yelled at me. Well, they're usually nicer than this, but they're just struggling at work. Maybe I did something wrong and it made them upset. Maybe I caused them to yell at me. Maybe I caused them to flip out. Maybe I caused them to, abuse me or neglect me. That's one of the biggest things we do in excusing bad behavior is we blame ourselves. Hey, kick out. So are you actively excusing their bad behavior? You need to acknowledge that because this gets you in tune with reality and it starts to break down this fantasy. Number 2, do you idolize or idealize the other person? Are you putting them on a pedestal? Are you making them perfect? Are they the person that has all these wonderful, powerful, beautiful attributes and none of the negative? Are you trying to make them into something they really aren't? Are you hoping that they'll become who you see they can be? Right? There's one thing codependents do a lot, and that is believe in the idea that they see the best in people, and they deny what they're actually doing. Okay? If you're doing that, you're living in this codependent fantasy because what it's doing is it's enabling you to continue to try to fix them. And that leads us to number 3. Do you believe that you can fix them? Do you believe that your love will heal them? I hear that a lot from my clients. Well, my love would heal them. No, your love isn't here to heal anybody. Your love is to bring you joy, bring you connection, bring you play, bring you expansion, to tap you into your brilliance. It's not here to heal anybody, because healing is an inside job, to be cliche. It's something the individual has to choose, and it's something the individual has to journey through. Our love has no role in that. We can support them, we can provide a safe space for them, but only on the terms that they're actually actively doing their work. Anything else outside of that becomes enabling with their behavior, and then we get screwed. We get stuck. We become the enabler of the codependent paradigm, because either you're pleasing, you're enabling, fixing, rescuing, or controlling, or avoiding things. Okay? So if you believe that your love will heal them, you believe that you can fix them, you're in a codependent fantasy. Which leads us to number 4. Do you devalue and shame yourself? Right? Do you give yourself up? When they need something, do you shed yourself and say, oh, I will absorb all your needs? Do you interrupt your life plans to accommodate their dysfunction? If they have a fire, do you run over and try to put it out even though they're the ones who started it? That is rescuing. And that's also where we're devaluing ourselves, because we're not investing in our yard. We're not investing in our life. We're trying to get them to make us feel better about ourselves. So in the codependent narcissistic relationship, we regulate their emotions and self-image, and they regulate our sense of value. This is the hidden or invisible exchange that goes on with this. Are you doing that? Because if you are, you're living in a codependent fantasy, because your love will heal no one. Your love is not designed, again, to do that. And you cannot fix people. People aren't technically broken. They're just choosing to behave a certain way based on experience, programming, and awareness, consciousness or lack of consciousness, that kind of thing. It's up to them to wake up and deal with their life, not up to you to make that happen for them. If you do that, it won't work anyway, because self-growth is a realization that I don't want to be this way anymore. Now I've got to take action to change it. Okay? So stop believing that your value is in fixing other people. Start retrieving your value back from that, believing and investing in your own beingness. Okay? And number 5, are you hooked on their love bombing? Okay? Now there's this little narcissistic cycle. I call it the narcissistic triangle, and they do 3 things. They love bomb us. Ooh, they like me. They're telling me all these magical words that I've always wanted to hear. I feel so special. I feel so seen, so valued. Oh, and once they know we're hooked, they move into what's called the devalue stage. Because the narcissist is now beginning to get supply because you're giving it to them. Supply can be attention, sexuality, money, food, time, presence, whatever it might be. But then they start getting annoyed because you want something in return too. You would like their attention. You would like their affection, right? You'd like them to actually treat you the way they were treating you just last week or yesterday. But suddenly it's so different today. What happened, right? This is where they begin to devalue you, criticize you, attack your identity, your character, call you selfish, call you too much, too little, a burden, stupid, wrong, empty. It could be all sorts of things. That's a devalue stage. And then once they're done with you, they discard you. They don't need you anymore. And this shows up as silent treatment. They move on to another relationship. They find somebody else in 2 days after you guys have been dating for a month. They're saying all the big, neat and amazing things about that person, things like that. This is really important because it's going to screw you over. But this is where you also get hooked, because in all this little process, they give us little hooks, little breadcrumbs by giving us a little love, and then we get hooked on it. This is called intermittent reinforcement. This screws with our brains chemically. It gets us hooked on a combination of oxytocin, dopamine, cortisol, epinephrine, serotonin, and dopamine. And this creates what's called trauma bonding or love addiction. Okay? So if you're hooked on their love bombing, you crave their attention. You need them in your life for you to exist, for you to matter. You're dealing with codependent fantasy. Okay? So I want you to check in with yourself and your relationships right now and see if you're falling in any of those 5 categories. Because if you are, then tomorrow I'm going to show you how to get out of this. I'm going to show you what you need to pay attention to, what you need to address with inside your own value center so that you can become free of the fantasy, start embracing reality so that you can actually have the happiness, the love, and the confidence you deserve to have. Okay, guys, thank you for showing up. I see Kit Kat did. Another couple of other of you guys. So tomorrow at 5 p.m., I will be giving you the next step into breaking out of this fantasy so that you can be happy again. Now, I've got some links above I want to point out to you. First link is my tribe. You're welcome to join my Facebook tribe, my community. This is where I help you succeed. Just through my weekly experiments, we have 5-day challenges once a month. You also get special access to my trainings and courses that aren't available to the public, so definitely join there. It is free. Also, if you're ready to actually heal and move beyond your codependency, you're ready to rediscover your happiness, love, and confidence, take my masterclass on how I help people accomplish that. I've worked with over 500 people doing this. I have a 92% success rate on this. So boom, get in there, take that masterclass, and learn how to heal your codependency. And lastly, I have set a firm date for the next Get Closure Now class. It deals specifically with healing trauma. We're starting July 29th. Seats will open for enrollment on July 9th. Get on the wait list to make sure you get your seat in that because it filled up very fast last time. We have a 20-seat maximum right now, so it will go quick. Okay, guys, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your support in this. And if you need anything, just reach out, PM me, reach into the group, contact me. I'd be glad to talk with you about your situation and get you connected to sources and tools that will actually create healing so that you can be happy, that you can have the love you want, again, the relationships you want, the success that you deserve. Okay? And remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. Talk to you tomorrow, guys. Have a good night.